Well, the first thing is that in Russia we have 7 official parties, and each party will nominate some candidate. So we have a couple parties that are just nominating the same candidates year after year after year, and no one will ever vote for them. Everyone knows that, but these are such charismatic people that we just enjoy them as comedians, just enjoy them a lot. And so they add this precious spirit of whatever it is to the whole election process, and we really enjoy watching them fight, but no one is actually taking this seriously. An interesting thing is that we don't really have the official kind of debate. The TV channels are sponsoring this, and last time when we had this president election in 2011, all the nominees, they took part in it, all but Mr. Putin. So everyone was looking forward to hearing a word from him, but we haven't got anything. But all the rest, well, that depends on the person. That depends on the personality of the candidate. They can be very polite, they can be at times very rude, but we take it just as a part of their personality because we know what to expect.
Well, it looks like a lot of political comedy goes on. Maybe John Stewart might think of moving to one of these countries. Any other person to chip in on this? Yeah, go ahead.
In India, it's a very interesting situation because the presidential candidates will, in general, take a very polite stance and the tone in which they talk. But the other political parties, the representatives from the parties will have an extremely aggressive tone. And regarding whether they sit down to have dinner and talk, it's very interesting to see because to come into power, you need a majority in the lower house. And a majority is, I think, out of a total of around 540 seats. And since many decades, they haven't had a single party come into majority. We have 2 major parties. One is the Indian National Congress, and the other is the Bharatiya Janata Party. So what they have to do is they have to form a coalition with the smaller parties and come into power. So what you'll see is a lot of, it's like a political game and drama going on once the elections have taken place for the coalitions to get formed. So the smaller parties are trying to appease the larger parties, and the larger parties are trying to get the smaller ones into their hold so they can come into majority. So you may see one smaller party representative hanging out with the Congress guy one day and appearing on television, and if the deal doesn't work out, after a few days he's having dinner with the other side.
Smart politician. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I would like to add, though, even in Bangladesh, the Prime Minister and leader of opposition, they don't talk with each other. But, other political leaders, like who are not in the Prime Minister or leader of opposition level, they have good business connections, good political connections. They do talk and interact. But in terms of debate, I would like to also add that even though there is no presidential format debate like chief of political parties that engage in debate, but there are some talk shows in television channels. There are television channels, they do organize some sort of political discussion, this kind of thing.
All right. I know that we'll give the audience, a chance to ask questions. So let's move fast because we have time constraints. I'd like to move to something else: campaign finance. There's no doubt that if you're a poor man like most of us, you can run for the presidency around here. How does it go? Anybody can take it. Do you have to be billionaire in order to run for office?
In our country, it actually really depends on the financial capacity of the candidate, first of all. Yeah. We don't have the party system at all. So anybody, there are 3 criteria as per the electoral law. Anybody who has completed the age of 40 and is a citizen of Afghanistan and is not involved in the crime, which is a very rare case, he is able to become a candidate for presidency. And one important requirement is that he should collect at least 100,000 votes of the nationals, and around $50,000 he has to deposit as a security for the independent election commissions. Everything is run, the election process, by independent election commission.
Do you get it back if you lose the election?
That's the important part. Yeah, if you get, because the requirement is that you need, in order to become a candidate, you need to have at least 100,000 people supporting you.
Yeah.
But some people might do the job just photocopying the ID cards of the people and make the 100,000.
Yeah.
But the requirement is that if you are not able to secure 10% of the votes, then you are not able to refund. At least if you need to get at least 10% or extra of the vote of the people on the election day, then you're able to get the refund.
All right, still talking about the finance. I mean, one unique thing, just a minute, one unique thing about the U.S. system is that, candidates set up websites and say, please donate. Do you have such things? I know that, again, in some countries I've visited, and in Nigeria, nobody is going to give you money to run for office. No. Yeah, you were going to say something.
Actually, as I said, in Kuwait, if you are from a particular group system, they might finance some part of that. The only thing that you have to have is being 30 years old in Kuwait and a Kuwaiti citizen to run to be a parliament. So that happened as the last parliament election in Kuwait. One of the candidates talked to his friends and say, if anyone support me, let's give me like $10 in Kuwaiti. So I would accept any donation from anyone who is supporting me. But otherwise, it's not happening. You have to do it by yourself. But the good thing about Kuwait is that it's a kind of social system. You don't have to go to the TV or to the radio or to the newspaper to tell people who are you. You can go to each person's house and sit with him or sit with his friends in the house and tell them what's going on with you and what's your agendas. So you don't have to have that much of advertisement. You have to have a good social relationship.
People, yeah. Who wants to jump in again for campaign finance? Yeah.
I would like to say that it used to be like in Bangladesh that the maximum limit for election expenses was almost say $10,000 US. But the election commission, they realized that it has become a kind of comedian aspect, because with this money nobody can run for any office. So they increased the maximum amount to $50,000 US, equivalent to $50,000 US. But even though in terms of campaign finance, I would say that there is no transparent way. People get money from the businessmen, and it is a fact that in Bangladesh, some people argue that politics has become a business, because all businessmen, they are involved in the politics. They run for offices. So the political parties and the chief of political parties, they do get money from the businessmen or business firms, but there is no open thing or documented thing.
All right, so the politicians are in politics for business.
Yeah.
All right. Any other person chip in?
I just wanted to add, due to the loose rules of the electoral law, sometimes we end up with the presidential candidates as high as 40 candidates running for presidential. People get lost on who is going to select.
I agree, and along the same line, because I remember for the 2006 election, we had more than 30 candidates, among which women. So which means like whoever is able to put himself or herself out there and has money can run for presidency. So which means, and also people, sometimes some of those candidates, they get support from their political branches. So like I know, like the case with the opposition, like this year, one of the things they had to do is to sell their card, membership card, for them to get money. But you also have people, as you say, businessmen and singers and so on. Some of them just decide from themselves if I want to invest in so and so on candidate. Yes.
Invest?
Yes, I would say that.
All right,
yeah.
So it's...
support, yeah.
Okay. All right, when we were doing the introductions, people were talking about issues that they will want to, talk more about. So now this is the time for us to take on those issues. At least in the U.S. here, we have quite a number of them. Let's probably start with women's issues. I mean, is that an issue in your country? I know that in Bangladesh you have a female prime minister, but they are rotating. I know the the other one is the current prime minister is the daughter of your father of the nation. Yeah. The other one was the wife of the former president. Yes. And so they've kept rotating. Yeah. Daughter today, wife tomorrow. I mean, address such
you're absolutely right. As I have mentioned that, Bangladesh is one of the, I would say that, Bangladesh has set examples in terms of women empowerment. As I mentioned that, the leader of opposition, prime minister, deputy leader of opposition, and a couple of key ministers are women. So in terms of women empowerment, I would say that, in some extent, at least in political offices, Bangladesh is much more higher than the United States. And you might know that, one of the Bangladeshi organizations won Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for, for an innovative idea like microfinance. And microfinance is actually, I would like to say that, the way of microfinance works actually for women empowerment, because those poor women who used to not get money to start business, so microfinance started to providing money for them, and in this way there are many women who came to the workforce in Bangladesh. So I would say that as Professor Uche mentioned, that despite the fact the two key women who are in the two political parties as chief, like the current prime minister and leader of oppositions, they came because their father and their husband, one of their father and one of their husband, they were the head of the country in the past. So within the two political parties, there is no democracy because they sustain the power within their party because of their family legacy. So, and they also, I would like to say that, in terms of respecting women, in terms of providing respect to other women who in other parties, I doubt, they do have any respect.
Well, in terms of women in politics, I think some of these countries are doing much better than the United States. I know in Brazil, you have a female president. In Liberia, we have a woman who is the head of state. Malawi, the same thing. Argentina. Also, and female prime ministers, we always have them. And so now that we have a woman as a president in Brazil, how are women issues treated when it comes to elections and politics?
The thing is that it's very interesting that we finally have a woman as president in Brazil. And it's not necessarily rare in Latin America. As you mentioned, we also have in Argentina, we had in Chile. Yeah. So it's a common issue. However, and I was going to ask you that, because you mentioned female empowerment in Bangladesh. Mm-hmm. Because in Brazil you can say, well, women are getting empowered in political terms, and in a sense I think it's true. But we still have a long way to go in terms of women's rights. And I think those are two different issues. They're somewhat related. But for instance, Dilma, when she was running for president in 2010, she was always a very liberal candidate throughout her history, her political history, a very liberal candidate in terms of social issues and civil rights. But because of the conservative climate that is taking over politics in Brazil, just like here in the United States, she had to change several of issues that were classical for her, for instance, supporting women's rights in terms of abortion or several other issues, because she wouldn't get elected if she openly supported these problems. And so, in a sense, in Brazil, any kind of abortion is mostly illegal. You can only have an abortion in cases of rape and risk of death for the mother. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you cannot have a legal abortion in Brazil. And this is one of the issues that people are pressing. But in order to be elected, Dilma had to say that no, she recognizes the legislation as it is, and she doesn't see herself as advancing any kind of legislation in terms of women's rights in the future. So I think there are two different important issues, right? One is the fact that you have a woman elected. The other one is that the fact that this woman was elected actually advances rights for women throughout the country.
All right, who else wants to jump in? Yeah, go ahead. Jiwoo.
As I said, we have a woman candidate for presidential election 2012 this year. I'm very looking for that how she's gonna handle with the women issue in Korea, because in Korea there are a lot of like issues going on with like affording the houses, like a lot of money on the educations, like. So now women has to work. A lot of women goes to work, and at the same time they have to raise their kids and do the like housework, and so there is the issue that who's gonna take care of the children, how much money actually is gonna be put on the educations. So I'm expecting that if the woman candidates is elected as a president, she can care about more women's situations, like living expense, like education, like raising children, a lot of like the safety of the children in South Korea. But one criticism, which she's criticized, that she never got married ever. So she's get criticized that how can she know like raising the kids. That's the issue of Korea, that are women candidates now in president election 2012.
All right. You want to talk about Togo?
Yeah, in Togo,
yeah.
I'd say socially women are really active in economics. They are really doing good. And politically, there is a kind of change now that put politicians to create some sort of quota. In political parties, there is an obligation made to those parties to always put women in candidacies too. So that's why we have had, let's say in this National Assembly, we are now having 8 women out of 81 men. That's 81 deputy. So that's one out of 10. So we are now doing, let's say we are moving forward.
All right. Women issues, are they prominent in Russia as they are here in the United States?
Not that much, I would
Or how will Russians respond to what is going on today in the U.S.? Women issue here and there. I mean, yeah.
Well, first of all, there are certainly women in politics, like ex-governor of the Leningrad, St. Petersburg region, Valentina Matviyenko. You might have heard about her. She's very active politically. But it doesn't seem like Russia's at this stage where women are getting that much active politically. I don't see any aspirations to do that a lot among young women, at least. So I would say women issues are treated well in Russia at this point. There is a lot of controversial debate on abortion issues, because at this point abortion is illegal from 2 to 12 weeks, which pretty much makes it illegal after this also. So other than rape or cases like this. But again, that depends. They're trying to press the point that all the human rights that we develop in Russia, that we stand for in Russia, are based on the traditional values. So traditional values is something that shows us what the human rights should be like. And as family is one of the traditional values, we try to protect family. This is the position of our government. This is the position on women issues and all other human rights issues.
I think Gloria wants to say something about
I would feel guilty to leave this podium without talking about the case of women in Congo, because it's just a disaster. So as I told you, with the war that is going on, this war has been declared as being the second world deadliest conflict since World War II. So more than 5.4 million people died since 1998, and the main victims are women. So women are being raped on a regular basis, which means women's issues is one of the most important things going on, which is on the agenda. And I think maybe one of the things that is going on with different political systems is to try to create more rooms for women to have voices, to express those issues. And we have more and more women being involved in politics. And I told you that we had candidates, female candidates. And also, one thing is important, because I'm just thinking about that, you talk about being married. The First Lady plays an important role in the political campaign in Congo. She's one of those people that the way it would be just here with Michelle Obama. So she would be supporting her husband, but also advocating issue on women. Because I think in terms of respecting people's lives and women's rights or being raped, it doesn't really matter in terms of you belong to which political branch. It's more about trying to save people to improve their living condition. So that could be at least one point on what different political sprouts could agree on in terms of, we have to save women's life.
All right, there are also other issues that are coming up. I know time again is against us. The economy, health issues, education, international terrorism. Which of these issues, which of them applies to your specific country, and are people interested, in what's going on in the United States with regard to that issue?
I would like to mention that, after the 9/11 incident, I would like to say that in every part of the world we have been experiencing the issues related to terrorism, global terrorism. So, as I mentioned that in Bangladesh, most of the people are Muslim. I would say that 95% people are Muslim. But in terms of political ideology, there are two political ideology. One is rightist, means, they are rightist Islamist. And another one, the current political government, they are leftist or more progressive, leaning towards Indian political ideology. And another one is leaning towards Pakistani political ideology. So, in terms of dealing with terrorism, United States is one of the big partner, and as well as Bangladesh is one of the strategic partner in counterterrorism fight for the United States. So the current political government or progressive alliance, they always want those people in power in the United States who are serious about counterterrorism, but also who would like to view counterterrorism in terms of holistic view. I would say that, in terms of long-term changes like providing education, providing cultural aspect for those people who are lagging behind so that, they can improve. Like as Barack Obama, I would like to mention that he was saying that education is key for making changes. Women empowerment is key for making changes. So without education, without women empowerment, there is no way to deal with counterterrorism or global terrorism, because those people who think that hitting other people from other belief is a kind of going to heaven, you cannot deal with those people with only fighting. You need to change their culture, you need to change their education. So I would say that in terms of US elections, Barack Obama or Democratic Party, they do change for long-term view or long-term perspective. So the current government, at least they would want that, the Democratic Party or Barack Obama government, they come to power so that, we all can fight this
international terrorism. I know that maybe in Bangladesh, in Afghanistan it will be, but let me hold it for one moment and come back. Another issue is immigration. It's a big issue here in the United States, and I know that Russia has like 20 countries, surrounding neighboring states. How do you deal with the issue of immigration, or nobody's interested in going to good old Russia?
Everyone is actually interested to go to good old Russia. That's why this is a very sensitive issue at this point. I'm not sure that the present government reached some kind of good point in that and good vision for how to deal with this problem. We're hoping that they will find some way to friendly and establish these borders, because otherwise right now feels like there are no borders and people are getting in and out, and it's been troubling some of the people, especially like Moscow, which is in itself a 10.4 million city. You can imagine that in itself, and people are coming not only from the rest of Russia but from other countries bordering with Russia, which makes it a monster city, and no one is happy. So,
all right, this election is about, they say jobs, and more jobs. How does this play in your own country? Anybody can jump in. Is it a big issue, or do politicians get very comfortable and say, okay, we'll see you next time? How does the economy itself, jobs, and jobs? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, there are many issues, especially during the elections in Afghanistan. But one thing I want to say first is a lot of promises are being made at the beginning of the election by every single candidate, but they are not kept upon. Once anybody becomes in power, then they forget about the rest of the population. The main issues that every candidate is mostly striking in their argument is the security issue, since Afghanistan has been now involved in some democratic situation since after almost 10 or 12 years. Security is the main topic. So far, nobody has been able to even extend the power of the government to all parts of the Afghanistan. Rural parts are even somehow out of the reach of the government control. So that's one issue. Women rights and women being able to become a candidate. Yeah. Yes, we had the history in past 2 elections. There we had women candidates, at least one female candidate for president, but it's very difficult due to the culture and the society. It's very, very hard for the people to accept women as in their lead. So in laws, in every aspect, from the international community perspective, they have been given very great opportunities, and they are encouraging women to get involved in almost every topic. But since we also have a very low rate of literacy rate for female, almost a little bit over 12%, which is very striking. So we also don't have much eligible people, and some of the people, their security issues are there. They're not even interested in going into politics at all. Another important is migrants issue. Yeah, we have almost over 1 million population in Pakistan and close to 1 million in Iran. So that's another issue which is taken into consideration. And the last is about the opium and the illicit drugs of that. Okay. Yeah.
All right. I know time again is our enemy here, but I'd like to just ask one last question before we go to the audience. We made a promise that we were going to take questions. What's your evaluation of the democratic process? I mean, you've been in the U.S. at least for 1 year. What's your evaluation of the democratic process, and is there any lesson you draw from it that will be relevant to your own country? Anybody can take it. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to say that I attended the 2008 election, and this is the second election that I'm going to attend. Actually, we are seeing it in a nice way, and we would like to have as same as the democracy that you have here in the U.S. Even though we in Kuwait has the one of the best democratic system in the Arab world, but the agenda of the candidates, their way of saying their agenda, their way of communicating with people, the way of taking care of the whole society, not a special people rather than the others people. So how they treat the problems and the issues in the United States, it's something unique that we don't have that much of it in our countries. Because in our countries, some of the candidates, not all of them, if he made a favor for some people, they would vote for him because he made that favor for him. But others, but we have others who, as here in the United States, who goes by the issues. I don't have to make a favor for you to elect me. This is my issues that I'm in belief of. If you believe the same issues, just elect me.
Yeah. Who else? One or two, then we can.
I think democracy should be now 22 years old in Congo. So it was launched in April the 24th, 1990. So the president, the former one I told you, who led the country for 32 years. So that's what he did on 24th of April 1990. So that's when he launched democracy. So in theory, so I would join my brother from Togo. That's what we see in Africa. Democracy should be what it is in theory. So when it's come into practice, you don't see much of that. There are issues of freedom of speech. As we say, access to media coverage during electoral process. I know there were like some television like channels that were closed, just censored, because they belong to the other side, the opposition. So I'm like, okay, it's one thing to have those texts and written, you say this is democracy, but how people practice that? So I think we can learn a lot from the United States, for instance, at least in terms of like freedom of speech and, and dialogue across differences. We may not share the same political views, but if we're fighting, and especially in the case of Congo with the war going on, we need to do something to improve the living condition of the people and to bring peace. Sometimes it's very important to sit and to dialogue across differences.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Togo.
Yeah, excuse me. I will start this with a small story. A friend of mine came to me, a friend from a neighbor country, whose president died. And he said, join me in your prayers, because we're going to election, let's say, in a short time period. Join me to pray for peace. I would like to say this is the illustration of election issues, mostly in Africa, and namely in my country, Togo. I said it at the beginning, it's the true nightmare. How can we make election without shedding blood? You see, it's always a time for communities to tribalism and all these issues. I'm really, let's say, when I look at politics as they are run here, democracy, the reality of democracy in the United States, I say, how can't we copy at least 1/10 of what is done here? Why should election be always the case for Africans to, let's say, to be divided? Here you will see candidates, they are always accountable to their population. This is what we are going to do, and they show you the way. And people really ask them to show how they can do it. But in our country, when you take it, I don't know.
Well, you speak with a lot of passion.
It's true. I say that's the real issue. In our country.
There was a politician in Nigeria. His catchphrase was politics without bitterness. And people laughed at him. Look, my friend, politics is about bitterness. Who told you we should remove it? If you remove bitterness from politics, then what are you doing? So that goes to, support. Now, I know, okay, one quick thing from China, and then we go to the audience. Yeah.
In my understanding of democracy, first of all, I want to say, I think even though we kind of criticize a lot of the presidential debates or all the political system in America, I still think America has the most advanced and also developed democracy system in the world. And as well, there are a lot, to me, democracy could apply in different forms in different cultural contexts. So the most important thing is so the idea of democracy should fit into your cultural context and also political context. It cannot you say, okay, Americans debate is so wonderful, let's just copy that. It's not the voice. You cannot the show of The Voice. The Voice is popular through a lot of countries, but it's a joke. You're supposed to laugh, but never mind. It doesn't work. Well, so in brief, I think democracy have different forms, and also we should be carefully use democracy to fit our specific political and cultural context.
Yeah, I think he's making a very valid point. It's not import democracy, hook, line, and sinker, and then it doesn't work in your. You have to adapt it. So let's take one or two questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Since we're in a college of mass communication and media arts, I'm wondering about the impact of new media on politics these days. Obviously, we've seen that in the Arab Spring, and I saw it a great deal when I was working in Beijing this year and last year, where I was unable to Google the words Nobel Prize, Falun Gong, Tiananmen, or freedom. Now, I say with all that, how are the new media impacting politics in your countries, and how do you see that as a 20th century phenomenon, 21st century?
Actually, I would tell you, for someone who's been living in the US for for about 4 years, and for belonging to a country where we don't have developed technology, and so you don't have many of our TV or radio station and also broadcast online, I learned most about things in my country, about the last political campaign from the media, from Facebook and online, especially Facebook. Even today, there is this ongoing discussion online. We have those different groups, people are joining and trying. They often use that as a space for advertisement and to get more people. That's what I can say, the way it impacts. So people are trying more. And they know there are people outside the country, like diasporic subject like us, and that's the way we try to connect. That's one of the things.
Can we hear from Kuwait?
Yeah. Actually, we have last February, we have a parliament election, and we call it like the Twitter election, because we saw lots of people become interested after the Arab Spring in that. And if we can have an analyzing of the number of accounts of Kuwaiti people, it jumped so high after the Arab Spring. People became so interested about being in Twitter. So you will have lots of candidates who with Twitter accounts trying to talk to people, have lots of followers and all of that. So, but what they were afraid of is the rumors at the night of the election. They were afraid of that, so they wouldn't like being patient about if there is something going wrong, they will attack it as soon as possible.
Okay, and be brief, because we need to take another question.
I would like to add that, as a scholar of media ethics, you might know that traditional media always do not, broadcast or publish all news items. And in our countries, the media are run by the corporations, and corporations are run by businessmen, and those businessmen are engaged in politics. So the new media, online media, I would say that, have brought dramatic change in terms of political discussion and participation, especially for the young people. But I would like to also say that, in terms of, new media penetration, there is very low rate in Bangladesh. And because young people or those people who are capable or those people who are elite class in the society, they do access of new media. Mm-hmm. However, those people who do have access, they use new media for all sorts of political discussion and participation, which are ignored by the mainstream media.
All right. If you have a specific question for a specific person, please feel free to ask. Yes, sir.
In the current debates, we've heard both candidates talk about focusing a lot of energy back into the United States. So that has actually got me thinking, is the United States going to take a step back from the world stage? And if it does, how will each of your countries react to this stepping back of the United States?
Who wants to take it? Because I know that Sameem has already said, no, you shouldn't step back because it's not good for Afghanistan. So is there any other country that, yes, India?
So I'll answer that question on 2 points. One is regarding the war in Afghanistan. And there's a concern in India that after the US leaves or plans to leave in 2014, will we have peace and stability in the region? Because the terror networks and terrorism has affected India significantly over the last few decades. So that is one concern about the US leaving Afghanistan and how stable the region is going to be and how the countries in the region need to come together as well to maintain peace there. And India and Pakistan don't really get along. The other thing I wanted to talk about was regarding outsourcing and jobs. And I can understand the US's point of view where training of teachers for English and math and working on the education in this country to build better and more educated citizens and getting them better jobs is awesome. But when he talks about, and they've increased the the conditions for getting visas, and has made it more difficult for people in India to come here and immigrate and to get a visa and to get their documents and everything. So it's not in favor of India, and Obama's often talking about that. And I think Romney also has the same stance on it, that both for India and China, when they talk about outsourcing and how that's going to impact these countries, is obviously it's not in the favor of India and China.
All right. Any other questions? Let's get as many questions as possible. Any other question from? Yes, sir.
I'd like to build on this question and also to the comments by a colleague from China. I wonder if you have an opinion about what kind of American foreign policy you would like to have in the country. There are two very different approaches being presented. Romney represents the policy of exceptionalism that says that America is the most well-developed democracy in the world and we know how to democratize. And Obama, if we kind of summarize it in one word, has been more conciliatory. He's been trying to work with different countries and to kind of take the approach that you're taking of trying to develop democracies that are appropriate for each country. So what approach works best for you? The United States is going to be involved in having a foreign policy. Would you want exceptionalism or would you want conciliatory?
Good question. Yeah.
Sir, thank you. I really appreciate your question. I think American policymakers should think this way, what kind of foreign policy they should take. Yeah. Because if we consider the global politics, if we consider the global circumstances this year, the economic strength, the presence of America to the global politics, to the global economy has a huge impact. Nobody can ignore it. If somebody likes or does not like, it doesn't matter. It is the reality that American presence in economic aspect, in global aspect, is a huge impact for the global thing. So, the way American leader deals with the other countries, the way American leaders, the American foreign policy view other countries, I would say that it has also huge impact. That's what I found as a guest of America, that Barack Obama, he has been addressing these issues. His view of working with all peoples, trying to get feedback, not enforcing, but also getting feedback, accommodating. Because America as a global leader should be, if they act responsibly, it would be good for global economy. It would be good for fighting terrorism, all sorts of things. So I would say that they should accommodate all countries. As you said, I forgot your term. Exceptionalism. No, not maybe. Consolidation. Because when in last debate, Mitt Romney was accusing Obama that he was visiting Egypt and other Middle Eastern countries for apologizing visit, but Obama was rebutting him that that wasn't apology, that was working with people. Because if you would like to work somewhere, some difficult people, then you have to find your friends there. So it's kind of, I would say that this policy would work for America and for a global perspective too.
All right, one quick response before we take the last question.
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah.
So number one, I really like this way to interact with people, and also but I have to acknowledge that even though we say go India or Togo, I can only say from my personal narrative, my personal as an ordinary Chinese, not stand for the country. So I have started to share with you when I started plan to come to America to study, my grandfather, who is almost 90 years old, and he said, congratulations, Spain, you should go, because Americans are very genuine, kind. They really want to make friends with Chinese, because he used to be a Second World War veteran and works with American soldiers who help Chinese to kick away. I don't know the word to say. The invasion of Japan or Japanese. So I mean, from my personal story, I always, in my family, we always think, okay, Americans are friends and Americans are kind. But when I see the debate and when no matter Romney or Obama, they say, oh, you are not tough enough on China. You are not. I was like, wait a minute, why China should be the enemy? We thought we're always friends. So there are some ideological plays in the political rhetoric, which is problematic to me, because I think as an ordinary Chinese, the reason I come to America to study, because I know America is one of the greatest country with the greatest resources in many different forms. So that's why I come here to study. And I also know that my parents don't want me to go to jail. I mean, for sure, because it's a promising land to no matter to Chinese or to Americans. So that's why I'm here. And so we want to be friends with Americans. And so I think there is a problem in terms of political ideology in the debate, particularly set China as the otherness or as the enemy. We shouldn't, we should be more tough with China. That's problematic to me. I mean, I just want to share my personal story. I mean, at least my grandfather is a friend to American friend, and I have a lot of American friends. I enjoy time here. We want to be friends rather than enemy.
All right, the last question, because we're really out of time. One final last question. If not, am I seeing any hands?
If there is no question.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. On a very friendly note. Okay, I will. I would like to thank members of the panel for coming, taking their time to share their experiences, and I would also like to thank you for coming. In my place, it's like when you call a feast and nobody shows up. It's a disaster. So I'd like to thank you, for coming, and hopefully we'll do this some other time. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.